This is John from Merge. So we wanted to go over, as we started to sort of get into this, as you know, we've had our tour of the campus. We've done several um, stakeholder meetings, virtual meetings with a lot of different groups and gathered a lot of different information. Um, so as we started to sort of get into this, we realized that before showing any sort of design aesthetic of what the signs may look like, that there were some issues that were coming up that we felt like we needed to have a conversation with you to get some guidance. And that's what we're gonna do today. Um, and as we go through this, we're still sort of investigating and figuring things out. And if there's something that doesn't work or you don't want to do, that's totally fine. That's why we're here, so that we don't go down a path that's not correct. If they're all still options at the end of the day, that's fine too. And as we get into the actual design of the signs, we'll take that into consideration. There were definitely some things we were having conversations about that we felt we needed to get your input on, if that makes sense. So really try to make you part of this design and wayfinding process, definitely. Okay.
Okay.
So there's basically four things we're going to talk about today. One is campus identity and name. And I think a lot of these things, Michael, as we were on the calls and as we did our tour with the group, we started to talk about these things. So, I don't think any of them are new, but visually we're starting to sort of address them. So, campus identity and name, right? What's the place called? Just if you think about what we do, we sort of think about big picture, and then we sort of work our way into the issue. So that's one. Zones and gateways or entry points into the campus, and how does all of that play a role in your ability to find your way? How does it control the amount of information that we need to present to somebody? We'll talk a little bit about that. And then how that information, the hierarchy, how does it present itself as you go through your wayfinding journey? Because that is a big piece of when we design the signs, what kind of information is going to appear on the signs, and at what scale and at what order, and those sort of things. And the last thing we're going to talk about is the spectrum of design. So I've sort of mentioned this in a lot of the meetings where, right now what we would call the signage design that's out there is sort of, they're silos, right? Everybody does their own thing, and that's what we're trying to get away. And that's one end of the spectrum. The far end of the spectrum is, well, what if we just started over? We took all the signs down and we had a brand new system for the whole campus. The likelihood of that, I don't know, is high. So we have to land maybe somewhere in the middle. So we'll have a little bit of discussion about that as well. So the first thing we wanted to talk about was the campus identity. So we're not getting into logos or anything like that at the moment. What we really just looked at was sort of the name and how it's referred to. So these were just some of the names that were thrown out there or referred to when we were in the stakeholder meetings. And then, some of the cons that were sort of against it, which was like Valhalla campus at Grasslands. It's a very long name. Some people use the word Grasslands, some don't. Valhalla campus, which gets very confused, especially if you use Google to go there. If you put that in, you're going to end up at the community college. And I know that happened to me the first time. And we heard that over and over from the groups. And then Grasslands Reservation, I think some people refer to that, maybe folks that have been there for a real long time, but that seemed to be very controversial, just something to stay away from. So those were the things we sort of moved to the side. We felt like just calling it Valhalla and then having Westchester County, New York underneath it was the important piece, that it is your asset. Um, but there's, obviously other tenants there. But when you think about it, and this goes to hierarchy as well, is that the site is Valhalla in Westchester County, and these are the tenants: the county, the medical center, the medical college, and North 60, the Ferrari site. So that's how we wanted to start to think about it going forward.
This is Anthony Zano, Assistant Commissioner. The only concern, I probably have others, but there is a village, there's a hamlet of Valhalla, there's a train station Valhalla. So there's another entity that already exists that we would be potentially, infringing upon. There's a post office probably, you know what I mean? So it's not, so that could be a challenge. But I understand your other issues there. We've been here a long time, so we kind of say the campus, the reservation, I understand. But I guess this is the challenge that we have to look at. But I just wanted to put that out there. I don't know if Bill, you agree? Michael, what do you think? But that's my 2 cents.
I'm the same as you, Anthony. I first saw that, and I was like, that's a great idea. Simplify it. But, like you said, there's a place down the road, downtown Valhalla, train station, the whole thing. And same issue, everyone will get sent there if they Google it, something like that. So
one of the thoughts when I was this weekend, I had TV on in the background, and they were talking about the Valhalla golf course where they have the championship. And I was like, oh, Val, is that, like, I didn't realize where that was, and I was thinking it was near you, but that's in Kentucky, right?
Right.
So that made me start. That's when we start to think about, well, what about this name? Like, how do we do this name? And can we just call it Valhalla, or does it have to have sort of a second identifier after it? And again, for today, it's just really a discussion. And if we need to, maybe come up with a secondary name or, a second sort of identifier after, we will. I think the point that you made regarding the hamlet is a good point.
John, can I share my screen for a minute? I just want to show some effort that was put into this in 2008. Okay. So in 2008, we started with a consultant, and I don't believe it got that far. But at the time, they came up with the name, and I'm sure some thought went into this, calling it the Valhalla campus. Westchester County, Valhalla campus. Right. You guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's also the idea of the Valhalla Center, which was a new concept I think they threw out there. I'm not sure how that would work, but I like the Valhalla campus, even though there might be a little bit of confusion with the community college.
Yeah, you see, the challenge, and I hate to, unfortunately, you have people like myself and Bill who have been here probably too long when it comes to trying to create, or maybe we identify with what we know for all this time. I like the fresh eyes, fresh thoughts, but I'm going to always fall back on how I know this. That Valhalla campus, that works for me, but I guess you're right. If it's you're going to get confused with the community college campus, but it is a campus. There's multiple tenants, multiple uses, medical college, medical facility, now the North 60. So I don't know. I'll let you guys
think
about it.
Valhalla campus. If you want to get around it, and maybe this is what they were thinking, is call it the Valhalla Center.
Or another word.
Or another word.
That
Campus.
other word.
Right.
Yeah, well, you also want to go confused with the Westchester County Center.
Yeah, center, and I'll be honest. I like the there is a Valhalla Center now. It exists right in the center where the train station is, and right down by Kensico Plaza. There's a little business district. There's there's restaurants. That's Valhalla Center, and so you got to be sensitive to that. That's already a destination place. We don't want them to say, well, why are you taking our name? Now you're, it's interesting.
Okay. Well, let us think about it a little bit more, but the guidance is good. It is what
Okay.
here going forward. Like I said, I don't know that we necessarily have to solve every one of these issues as we have this meeting today. We just wanted to get some guidance, and I think it's valid guidance.
All right. I'm stopping my share. John, you can take it back.
Okay.
Yeah, John, I just want to give you the shoot from the hip. Yeah, I understand you're going to take these things further, but I think it's important that you kind of get our immediate reaction, and then you take and do what you want with it. That's why we have you hired. But I think it's important to get the shoot from the hip, get it, our first reaction. But we know we're not going to solve world peace and famine today. I understand.
Yeah, and
And when you guys try and figure out a name, you may also want to try and remember that there's, Westchester County as a government entity and as a location. So if you say Westchester County Valhalla, people are just going to think, okay, this has nothing to do with county government. It's just a locator. You know what I mean? It's Valhalla in Westchester County. So you may want to put some sort of rider on it, the Westchester County Government Services Valhalla or something like that.
Too long.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that. And I guess that's why we wanted to have this meeting, because we didn't want to go through a design process where we're just showing you Valhalla and then we learn that maybe that doesn't work. So it gives us good guidance.
I mean, this is Bill. I was even thinking about going back to the word grasslands, even though it's negative. It's like, well, it's on Grasslands Road, but then so is the WCC campus at Valhalla. That's also on Grasslands Road. So
yeah, Bill, we also heard from the hospital, and they said no one knows the campus as Grasslands.
Right. They said, and again, I think back administration ago, they said, let's get rid of the word grasslands. That's what we've heard a couple people say. Cooney Ritchie, who maintains the campus, he said, no, we were told just to go with Valhalla campus. So, but now we've got, in the world of GPS, which didn't exist 10, 12 years ago, now we've got the issue with confusing with WCC. So
rebranding is also one of the considerations here. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. It's part of, again, it's thinking that big picture in, where am I directing to begin with? So we'll talk a little bit as we sort of go through this. Oops. So the next thing we wanted to talk about were zones and sort of zone options. And there were just some basic things we wanted to sort of say about that. So we have this sort of common thing in wayfinding is that you can't direct to everything from everywhere, right? That there has to be some control of the amount of information that's being presented. And that's really what zones do. Right now, you can see if you go out there, especially when you look at the college and the medical center and the signs that some of the signs that they have out there, they have 8, 10, 12 listings on a sign. You might as well not have a sign at all at that point, because you can't comprehend that sort of amount of information. When we talk about the zones and we start to try and tie things together so that all wayfinding tools reinforce each other. So when we talk about the zone, we're also going to talk about the entry point. And then then how does it affect the directional signs and what you're finding your way to along the way. And zones are common, it is a common wayfinding tool to provide farther reach. So you don't pull into a airport and see a sign for gate 12, right? Terminal A, and these are the airlines you go to, and then you make your way through. Or you don't go into a hospital and see the room, pull up in your car and see room 252. You get to the right building, to the right wing, to the right floor, to the right room. So it's that thought process is, a typical wayfinding organization of information. And then we want to keep the information simple. So the real key is to just tell me what I need to know at that particular moment. So one of the examples of that is when you get to even just the entry sign. There's all these different things that are listed there. Really, we just want to let you know at that point that you're at the campus. You're at Valhalla campus or whatever we name it. And where am I coming in? Am I coming in the north end, the south end, the west end? Which end am I coming in? Do I really need to know that household materials and recovery facility at that point in time? Not really. Once I pull in, I can start to break down that information. So that's what we started to look at as we went through this process. So we basically have looked at it in two options. Option one really is based on entrances, but really compass points. So if you broke the campus up into these zones, north, south, west, and North 60 obviously is sort of its own thing as well, but obviously it could be north. You would then have a north entrance, a south entrance, and a west entrance. You can maintain a Walker Road entrance as well as another way to come in, but at least three of them are tying into the zone that you're entering in. So come in the south zone. We'll show you how that sort of works. So you would arrive at the campus main entrance. You're going to be at one of those entrances. You're either going to be north, south, west, or Walker Road entrance. When you pull in, you're going to be told what zone you're in and what destinations are in that zone. And then at that point, you're going to go to either your destination. You may have to go to another zone and then go to your destination. You would then park your car, get out of your car, become a pedestrian, have some information like a map, and then go to your building. So that's sort of the information that flows. I'll try and zoom in on that a little bit more. So even the way you would give, even the way you would.
Hey, John, real quick, Westchester's one word, no space.
Yeah, our problem is we're in Westchester, PA, and it's 2 words, so we get caught going back that way.
That's my fault. Sorry.
Glenn will fix that.
I'll fix it.
No, you actually show it as one word sometimes, and I let the first one go. I'm like, well, maybe to just, space it, but I figure I better let you know. So
Thank you.
thank you.
So in the entrances, so how you would give direction is enter, come to Valhalla and enter the campus at the west entrance. Follow the signs to the County Police Academy in the west zone. We're in the way. If you have to give direction, you're saying we're in the west zone. Our address is 2 Dana Road, parking lot number 13. Once you get out of the car, there's a map that will tell you where to go. The entry is on the right. So that's sort of how you would give direction. The signs you would see are here at the bottom. So again, a entry sign, south zone to those destinations. You may get a mix. So if you came in the south entrance, you would get a direction to say the north or the west. Parking signs, a kiosk, and then an ID sign that says 16 Dana Road. You may even have at the bottom of it, Westchester County as an identifier. So in this case, you're basically directing to a zone first and then going from there. The second option was what we called anchors. So in this case, the anchors are, the major tenants, the county, the medical center, the college, public safety as a anchor on the one end. And that's what, and you would direct to those individual things, which is similar to what you have now. You would just control it a little bit more. You would then identify the entrances to the campus by the road that they're on. So you would give direction to enter in at the Hospital Road entrance, or the Woods Road entrance, or the Dana Road entrance, or Walker Road entrance. The benefit of this is that the entrance is named after its location. So there is a orientation to that direction that you're giving, whether it's Dana Road or Woods Road. That's what the wayfinding infrastructure that's out there on the road now currently says. So that was another way of doing it. And in this case, you're telling people come in the Woods Road entrance, follow the signs, say to the medical college, When you get to the medical college, you'll start to see the buildings and the addresses. You'll park your car, you get out, and you go to the entry. So it takes at least one step out of it. But there, compared to the other one, you have an orientation, north, south, east, west sort of idea to it. So we wanted to get some feedback on those zone ideas before we went any further. I can go back to this map.
John, just a quick question. What's your sense of the college and the hospital? What do you think they would prefer?
Well, we'll talk a little bit about that with the design. I mean, some of this goes to the design as well. I mean, I think as long as we get people to that one area and then break it down to it's not like their names go away or anything like that. It's just more how you organize the information along the sequence. But, to answer your question, I'm not sure. I mean, we would have to maybe present that idea to them.
I think the benefit to this option is that we're limited to the amount of space and the amount of destinations we can list on signs. So this allows us to group buildings and destinations into districts or areas, so that when you have a sign, you can direct to the close destinations, but then you can say south and north are this way. So in the long run, it might help us organize the information a little bit easier.
I mean, there is a benefit that you have a medical center and medical college that are next to each other, and they're all going to be in the same zone. I think if they split, then that might get a little bit, a little bit more tricky. You're really
Right.
organizing it to. You're organizing the campus you're organizing the campus into the function. I mean, North 60 is always going to be its own thing. You should have this north zone, which is really the medical function, the south, which is corrections and some county departments, and then the west, which is where we have public safety.
Yeah, but you have
I think it works great. This is Bill. I like the entrance. That's what I was hoping to see about that, and the zones. I think it works fine. Two good things is that, from what I understand, Michael, North 60 is going to rebrand themselves into some other name, possibly, right? And who knows? They might try to tack on the word Valhalla or something too. But all the more reason for us to coordinate with them and check in with them, I guess, on this. And then another thing too is that far western edge of the north quadrant is we don't have to bother with signs. Those are access off another road there. So
Right.
I just want to confirm that right, Michael, we're not dealing with that section there, that office park section there. So
the Brad
that kind of slices off.
No,
No, on the west side.
Oh, the west,
green
yeah,
north.
right there.
right.
we just
Yeah,
filled that.
and,
We just filled that in so that we didn't have any like neutral zones or no man's land. But yeah, that's not really.
You gotcha. Right. That's out of our reach here. So, but yeah, and then as you dive deeper, like you said, I like then you can have different colors within the zones. So if the medical center is the blue zone, they have their blue sign buildings. The college has red sign buildings, right? That's the next level down.
Well, we're not sure that we really want to color code the signs. We're going to have to look at that. We don't want to create another level of information that gets confusing. So we're going to have to figure that out a little bit more, especially with the college and the medical center, where their signs now are sort of brand heavy with the color. So we're going to look at that with the design spectrum as well.
Okay.
I like the north, west, and south as opposed to the names of the roads. It's just cleaner. It seems like less words. It's directional. I like it. Hernane and Anthony, do you agree?
I'm of the other opinion. I like the idea of the roads because when you're thinking about it from a stranger's point of view, you're not going to know the north side, the south side, the west side. When I'm coming in off of the south entrance, it could be the north entrance for all I know. Most people don't have a sense of direction anymore. They don't even look at the compass in their car, look at GPS, and they look at road names really. So I could see how this looks a lot cleaner on plan. It definitely does. It's much, much cleaner. But I think from a wayfinding standpoint, the entrances look a little bit, and I think the entrances actually allow for a little bit more flexibility because the way you have it here is almost grouped by use. And uses can change, especially with future plans. I mean, you guys know better than I do what the future plans for that campus are going to be. But uses can change. I know we talked about putting a large DPW facility out there. And then citing that might change, might go into somebody else's green zone or blue zone or something. So
Hernani, I think we got to let the professionals. It's going to take time, and us old timers who've been here too long will struggle with it. But if it's implemented correctly, it may take a little time. I think it's important that it makes sense. And I mean, I'm on the fence with it, but I understand how you're doing it with the north, south, and different areas, the west side. So I want to see this played out a little bit. I'm at 50%. I'm not against it. I'm not for it. So I want to see how you go further. I'm going to leave it to the professionals. I know what I do, but I don't know. So I want them to further develop this, and maybe it'll get reinforced, and we'll maybe think of it a little bit different. But I'm just one vote.
But Anthony, it sounds to me like they're just asking, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys are just asking us what our personal preferences, because both ways work, right?
No, I got it. You said what yeah. So I'm just saying what mine is. I understand, and the professionals are going to figure out, listening to us and how to make it work. So I appreciate your comment. I just,
And it may end up being a combination. And again,
Yes.
today was just to say if there was something like was totally out of the question, then that's what we're trying to sort of identify. Let me I'm going to jump to something for a second, because we wanted to talk about the spectrum of design, because I think that was an important piece of it. And some of that starts to give you a little bit of thinking of how we were going to start to look at it. I think some of the issues, and we've talked about, there's obviously multiple wayfinding systems on campus. We want to avoid signage clutter. So, this is what's out there now, where we have just many different sort of sign types and designs. I mean, even the hospital has a couple different versions out there. We have, I think we always point to this intersection in the upper left, where it has, 2 or 3 different sign elements there. And that's what we're trying to avoid, is sort of this sign clutter. But when we started to talk about it internally, like I mentioned earlier, is that if you think about sort of the spectrum of where this can fall, what you have now is, again, the silo model, which everyone really does their own thing. This is North 60. We don't know what they're going to look like, but they would do their own thing. County, medical center, college. At the far other end would be tear everything down and start over and just make everybody the same and organize it. That would actually be the easiest thing to do, right? And from a design standpoint, from a logistics standpoint, funding standpoint, political standpoint, probably not possible. So we had to think about, how do we fall in the middle of that? So again, there's no design applied to this. It's really just to give you an idea of how we can control the design on the campus and get some sort of level of consistency. I think at the same time, always recognizing that, at least from the college and the medical center standpoint, they are going to want to hold on to some level of identity with their signage program. So if we use the north-south zone idea, what we would basically be designing is a new entrance sign, however, whatever you end up calling it. And say and this is not what the base is going to look like, but let's use the base as an element of a consistent piece. You come in and you'll enter into the north area, and maybe they're just banners, an expensive way of doing it, but there's an identity that lets you know you're in the north zone. If you cross into the south zone, there's something that lets you know you've crossed into that area. In this instance, we would say all the parking on the campus, and we could talk about this as well, all the parking on the campus should be organized as a singular, even though there's different owners and that sort of thing, if there can be a singular language to parking, that would be helpful, whether that's with numbers or whatever. Providing tenant information, for the hospital lots and letting people know that's a hospital lot. But overall, the design is the same. And then you get out of your car, and there's really a Valhalla campus map that shows you where you are. If you're right next to the hospital, I'll have a hospital map, but you see that as a consistent design. As you move through the campus, on the medical center grounds, they'll have their sign. On the college grounds, they'll have their sign. And then anything that points, anything related to the county, you would have your sign. The key here is that we would work with the other two to make sure that the individual directional signs have shared messages. So that you start to, if you get to a point where you're at the medical center, but you need direction to a county facility or a college facility, that they start to put that on there, and you start to have the zones as well. So it's really more about sharing messages in this option than it is about or on these sign types than it is the design itself. The other thing within this is that if you established an element, in this case, we're using the base because it's simple, that is consistent for all the building identification signs on campus, that will give you a level of consistency throughout. We don't think that you could go back and have the college and everybody change out bases, but at least on the identification, at the college, you could take that shape and put it on top, but no matter what building you get to, there's going to be some level of size and consistency associated with it. So that's how that would work with the zones. Are there any questions with that?
It's just my initial impression is that there's going to be a lot more signage being proposed to put on the campus. Do you have any sense of the locations of the various types of signs? Have you started putting some dots on the map?
No, I think that's sort of down the road until we sort of settle on some of these concepts. One of the things we talked about was that if we start to identify where signs are now and identify who owns those signs, and I think that's one of the steps we need to do, and where things can get consolidated. So actually with this idea, you would have less signs than what's out there. We're trying to do it with less signs that are what's out there now. Because at this point, what you're doing is sharing, you're trying to share information. So what typically will happen in a multi-tenant campus is that once you plan out all of the signs and who signs are who, you then start to look at locations to say, okay, at this point, it can be shared. And okay, is it a county sign or is it a medical center sign?
Yeah, John, this is one question I have for you, and I'm glad you guys
doing this because I can't get my head around. Unfortunately, over the years, our tenants, the medical center and the college, were tired of waiting for the county to do something of our 1970 wayfinding or lack thereof, and they embarked on probably a significant amount of monies being spent on their signage, on their image, on their mark, you know. So they've created a sign that they've now put on near their facility. How do we, I think what Michael was getting at, I think they're going to be very resistant, and I could be wrong, to having, you know, complete changes. They've marketed themselves. They now have a brand, they have a color, they have a sign, and now the county's going to come in and say, wait a minute, we want to do our thing. So the challenge is, how do we try to keep as much as what they have in place with maybe some modification so it's uniform somehow without trying to have now 3 different signs up at this place? And I don't even know the answer to that, but
So Anthony,
I'm sure you're thinking about that.
Anthony, you might not have known that we had some stakeholder outreach with the hospital, with the college, and they were both very receptive.
All right.
Very
Shut up.
receptive.
All right.
No. It's a great question. It's a very good question, and I think
actually the
what
most important
is really
question.
needed is further outreach with them to share these concepts with them before we get much further.
Right. So in this example, and again, there's no design applied to this. It's just generic to a certain extent. All we would be asking the college and the medical center to do is change messages. We're not asking them to redesign their sign or put in a whole new structure. It's really, how can we consolidate information using the structure that they have out there, and maybe it's just a change of a sign face with messages that are more in tune with what we're trying to do from a wayfinding standpoint. So we would not be trying.
I think that'd be okay.
That's sort of the.
I think that'd be great.
It's sort of the
Okay.
of not having to.
I got you. You can keep going, John. I know where you're going.
Got it.
Okay.
Great. And John, and this is Bill. Those bottom left, that's that situation. Like the medical center and the college have their own shaped signs, but we come to them to say, hey, we want to clean things up. Can you modify your existing signs? And we'd have to have that conversation with them.
Right, and it's really just the panel and the messaging.
Got it. And again, we all heard, I don't know if Fernani heard that the medical center has ordered a big new kind of totem pole size sign out at Woods Road entrance. So, but they said, but it has interchangeable panels. Like, so, you know, if we have a system, they'd be able to put in the south and the west and switch things around, right? That kind of thing.
Right.
When was this done? Is this recent?
Yeah, when we met with them over the past year, we introduced that we're working on this plan, and we said, oh, by the way, we're going to be looking at signage, and everyone agrees it's confusing. They said, well, we have our own system, and in fact, we've ordered and are going to be installing and knocking down the existing monument sign at that intersection. We're going to be installing this new, I don't know how many feet tall, 20 feet tall kind of sign. Again, I say totem pole, but like a vertical kind of sign. And last we checked with them, they said, yeah, it's still coming. It hasn't arrived, but
before they did any of that, shouldn't they have done some sort of application through your department?
Apparently it was approved by the 9th floor. It never even came to us, Hernani. So that's unfortunately how things get done sometimes. They just go to the top, and then we find out at a meeting that, oh, this was already approved. So, yeah, it should have. It didn't. And now we're going to, it's pretty big, I understand, too. So, well, we're going to hear more about this. Wait until it goes up.
John, have you been able to reach out to their signage consultant?
No, I mean, I have the drawing of what they're doing. It's similar to if you sort of drive down Woods Road, just south of that entrance. There is a large directional sign there now, and my guess is that it's probably similar in size to that, because it does say Valhalla campus on it, and it does then direct to their destinations.
So, Mike, I got a question here. you guys had a stakeholder meeting with the medical center and others, and they said, oh, we're all on board. However, we're still doing our own thing.
Yeah.
Is that how it played out?
Yep.
I don't think so. No, that their own thing was a prior meeting. So
fine.
the last meeting we had about a
Yeah.
month ago, they seemed to be more amenable to working with John and Merge. And so I think at this point, maybe we should have that meeting with their signage consultant and with John and talk a little bit more about what our proposal is here with Merge,
Yeah, so
with them.
their comment, when we met with them, what they basically said is, we've been going through a wayfinding process for a number of years. We're slowly moving around. They did the front of the medical center, and that's been redone. And now they're starting to move around the backside of it, and replacing some signs back there. But keep in mind, when they say their consultant is a sign fabricator. So that's why they have signs out there that have 15 messages and are so big, because, he's interested in building signs. He's not trying to solve a wayfinding problem. So just sort of keep that in mind. What they were open to was realizing that they say, yes, we often have too many messages. They're trying to direct to too many things. And we are open to consolidating that and trying to come up with a more consistent system that would be coordinated with what the county's trying to do with the campus. In the same sense, the college said virtually the same thing, which was like, we have signs, they need some help. We put them in, say, 5-7 years ago. We would be open to working through this with you. I don't think in either case they were open to tearing down and starting over, which I think we all understand. But I think in both cases they were willing to come to a middle ground in messaging. And that's how we got to this middle ground in how do we sort of surround them with a consistent look for the other parts of the campus that aren't on their right of way, for lack of a better word. So we have to get into a little bit deeper in that to really do an analysis of all the signs that they have and how this would work. But this is sort of the overall approach to it.
So what do you see as the next step, John?
Well, I think we're going to start to look at some designs to show how this would graphically translate over. And as long as, we weren't showing anything that was totally out of the realm, that we should stay away from. That's really why we wanted to have this conversation. So that, as you said earlier, just, first reaction to some of the things that we were proposing. We'll look at the zones, like I said earlier, with the zones, either what we call the anchor version or the compass version. We'll look at it both ways. I mean, that's fine too. We just didn't want to look at something that wasn't going to make sense, or if there was something that you guys were just like, yeah, that's it, let's do it, then we would just go with that one.
Yeah, I think having both, because we were all on the fence about it. So I think that's a good way to go for now.
Yeah. What about the idea of parking? And similar to, there's addresses for the whole campus based on the road, that if we sort of organized all the parking to be a little bit more sequential, or, I just need to park near my building, and making that simpler, that it wasn't so, well, the hospital has a parking sign that looks like this, and the college has one that looks like that. And because that's another layer of signs that are sort of random as well.
All right, I'm going to share my content for a second, because I just, our planner who does the mapping in the office, the GIS work, just came up with this map. So here's some of the main parking areas. Yeah, it sounds like it might be a good idea to have them numbered. And maybe it is a numbering by zone. And is that the question that you're asking, John?
Yeah, and I think the way we would do it probably is the medical center already uses numbers. So that would be the starting point, is just to build um, off of that system and expand it out from there to get some sort of consistency, because they probably using those numbers, um, you know, integrated into a lot of other things. I mean, the way they tell people to get there, they're already using them. And they have a facilities plan that they're already using. So again, it's more about campus-wide parking wayfinding, sort of the next layer down beyond, you know, again, big picture in getting people to the right destination, and then, okay, they have to start to look for parking. You know, is that information consistent? Is that information understandable and clear? That's what we want to look at next.
And what's paid parking and what's employee parking and what's restricted parking probably should be part of that, right?
Yeah, so maybe I can zoom in, and we start to think about this, but well, even on the,
You want to take your screen back?
yeah, if you get my screen back.
Sure. Go ahead.
So this is probably a little bit too simplified, but it gives you the idea that, you know, I'm driving around, I look for the parking symbol, what lot am I going into? Maybe there's a panel in here that is tenant-specific parking information, right? Maybe the panel is blue for the medical center. It tells you if it's staff or visitor or paid or whatever. You know, it's very specific information. And then at the bottom, you get your identity out there. So there's a hierarchy that happens at every parking lot with that information. So once I'm sort of familiar with what I'm looking for, I'll find my parking lot, I'll get to the right number, and I'll be told what to do. Right now, you can go to any parking lot and see something different. So,
Or nothing at all.
or nothing at all, yeah. So, I mean, in the end, what we're trying to do is, you know, the kiosk is another thing. Then I get out of my car, and which way do I go? What do I see? You know, is there a map? So we realize there's certain things that are not going to change. They're vehicular directional signs are the primary thing that's not going to physically change. Message-wise, maybe we can change it. And then what around it can we make consistent to build that consistency around it? So they're the sign types that we're starting to consider. The other thing that we're going to be probably sending out to you is this is the list of destinations that are currently listed on the signs. There's a lot. I think what we're probably going to do is have a conversation with each of the primary tenants as to what is really a primary, secondary, tertiary message. Because I know when we talked to the medical center, they were even saying that some of the things that they currently direct to probably don't need to be directed. You know, they're old and probably don't need to be on the sign. So, you know, obviously, when we get to the next stage of where signs go and what they say, having this list agreed upon and approved is really important, because if you start once you do that, all that sequencing of messages, if you start adding things back into it, it's always easy to delete, but adding things back into the sequencing can be difficult. I mean, you could see from this list, that's a lot of destinations. We do cities that don't have that many destinations. So for the size of the campus, I think in some cases, like even the medical college, they may be directing to some pretty detailed destinations that are internal to maybe a building, and we can get some
Yeah,
guidelines.
my first guess is that the pavilions would go and you would throw some of that Taylor under the medical center and the halls as well.
Yeah, we just want to have a better understanding of how those particular like halls and pavilions, how they operate. The other questions you start to ask is, are visitors really, is it really a visitor-centric destination?
I think it is only right now because of COVID. They're having a drive-through testing site at one of those halls. But otherwise, I don't think they're used for the public at all.
Yeah.
Right. Like DPW central heating plant. Maybe you need that sign because you have critical vehicles needing to get there. But if it's only rare that someone needs to find it, that kind of thing, or the stone house, I don't even know what that is, and whether or not that needs a sign.
Yeah. So we'll try and tighten this up and then get it over to you to get some comments. And if we have to meet with the medical center or the college to have that discussion, we can do that.
Why don't you send it to us first, and we'll take a first stab at it?
Yeah, that's no problem.
Okay.
And I think that's all we have. So.
Sounds good.
Perfect. I have a call in 6 minutes.
Okay.
So off to my next one.
We'll go back and regroup a little bit and make some progress and then set up another call in short time.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, John.
And again, regarding that name, just if you need to just on that, if you need to bounce it around, because we may need to bounce it upstairs or something like that.
Sure.
I'd hate for that to go around in circles for the next during the whole project or something.
Yeah.
I agree. We need to get our leadership on board with this. But it's not an easy one to wrap everyone's head around. But let's focus a little bit on that, and then you guys can do the rest. But we should have a discussion as well.
Yeah, we may show it. We may show it as a graphic as well, so that you can sort of see how, rather than just like typed out names. I think if we show it with some graphic treatment, even if it's simple, that might help it as well. Make a decision.
Right. And again, we'll definitely, like Anthony said, take your professional advice and assistance as we make that decision.
Yep.
Yeah, because we're going to blame you if it goes south, so we might as well give you the credit first. Nah, I'm kidding. But this is what you guys do. But you have a group of people that's new to this and have been here, like I said, too long. So I relate to it from what I know for all these years. It doesn't mean it's right, guys. Okay, and this is the time if we're going to rename, rebrand. I got to step out of that box. But it might take not just me. It might take a lot of people a little more time than you might, because we're going to resist change, which is sometimes something. Change is good, but sometimes people just don't. It's just unknown. So be patient with us, but don't give up. Push.
Yeah. But we're gonna keep taking time. That's why we did this, so we can take these tiny steps and sort of move it along, instead of sort of coming out, with some big thing at the very end and trying to change it. So we'll take it one step at a time.
Okay.
Okay, great.
All right.
Great.
Thank you. All right.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.